Hey there everyone, it's Pete here, and we're going to be continuing with another run of Slay the Spire. Last time we completed the Watcher and got through the full run, so now we only have the Ironclad to get through before we can really get started on the Heart and Ascension runs. I had started the run, but I haven't even proceeded past the first floor, so you'll see continue here instead of starting up. And this is where we're going to be presented with Meow's bonus, or the whale bonus, really. We have now our two first options, which are different from our initial set. We have two trade-off options. And this is generally how the whale bonus is structured. You get two just pure benefits, then you are given two trade-off options. The last of which is always you lose your starting relic to obtain a random boss relic. For the Ironclad, even though the boss relics are particularly powerful, it's more often than not, it's not a great trade-off to get rid of Burn and Blood because the healing goes very well and is a large amount of sustain that just keeps the Ironclad going the whole time. But depending on the options that are provided, at least it's you gotta think about it a little bit more, and it really depends on how the first act is structured. Okay, so gonna look through here, see what we have. Quite a bit of campfires if we want. We can go through a couple of elites. So at the very least, the losing Burn and Blood is not a bad idea. At least it's something that we can take and consider. Losing two cards for 2 max HP, it would thin out the deck a little bit, but at this point, it's not something that I'm willing to consider. So now it's a question of whether or not this is more powerful than obtaining 100 gold and trying to spend that at the first shop, or any shop further down the line, or if we want to just transform a card. I don't like transforming a card here just because it's way too random and it could give us something even worse than even a strike that we would be transforming. So here I'm actually going to try replacing the starting relic to see what we got. And we got the Black Star. So up front, it's not great, but it will make the elites a lot more appealing, and as long as we can get through them, it will snowball into a very good run as long as we can keep ourselves alive. Alright, so pretty standard stuff. I'm going to be prioritizing a little bit more defense now that there is no heal at the end of each fight. And I need to be a little bit more careful about when and how I take damage. Okay. So, first choice, we have Second Wind, which exhausts all of our non-attack cards. We have Dark Embrace, which lets us draw cards every time we exhaust. So these two would actually have some synergy between each other, but not exactly useful at the moment. Leave is alright. When we actually need to think about elites, this would work very well with sentries, and it's a okay attack card to start out with. Alright, so here we're presented with whether we want to take 100 gold or if we want to take 275 gold, but we get a regret. And the only reason why the 275 here is actually worth considering is because we have a shop right here and we can actually spend all this gold. But there is a consideration for how many different cards you're going to be removing at shops. And that is where each time you remove a card, it increments by an extra 25. So by spending the first one just to remove the regret, you are probably going to pay so much extra for this gold than you actually might be receiving. So most of the time I just take the pure 100, and I actually am going to do that here as well, even though I'm sure that I could take the removal here without too much concern. So immediately I see the Sling of Courage, which gives us a little bit of extra attack against elites. We're talking about probably going to be targeting them throughout the run. This actually speaks to me quite a bit. And other things we're considering is some more attack and draw, some status ailments where we can actually apply weakness and vulnerability. Shockwave as a whole is a very powerful card that works a lot better in Acts 2 and 3 than it does in Act 1. And then a few other cards that we've already seen and don't think they're going to apply as well here. I'm going to take the extra strength, and I'm going to take attack and keep on moving. And we got some more attack. And that's probably going to be all we're going to take in terms of commons with draw. So early on, this is where Carnage can actually be very good for the other elites that we don't have good answers for just yet. So Carnage will give us some heavy damage to hit them harder, as opposed to some chipping damage that we already kind of have answered for with the Sling of Courage. Especially when you actually incorporate vulnerability, this is where it becomes something that hits even more so. So this is more of a card for elites, and then just trying to deal a lot of damage up front, and then that's really about it. Because we're also going to be facing elites, and we're going to have some extra strength, so a boomerang actually might be worth considering here. I think I would actually prefer Carnage here. This would work very well with Lagavulin and with Gremlin Knob, but I'm going to stick with Carnage here. And the main thing is because it can actually also exit our deck if we don't need or want any. So immediately we can see a little bit of the benefits here, where we're going to only take one real hit and then be done with this fight already. So Pen Nib. With Whetstone, always want to check to see if there's a card you want to upgrade before you actually take it. And we have Offering, which is a great card when you can counteract the major downside, which is losing 6 HP to play it, but you get 3 cards plus energy. It goes very well if you still have the ability to heal at the end of each fight, or if you're going to be stopping at a lot of campfires along the way. I do think, at least for this act, we're stopping at enough that we can take this and be fine, and I'm going to stick with that idea. So 2 good upgrades. It makes our non-basic strikes that much better. And we have a decent shop as well. Okay, so one consideration is Inflame. This way we'll have some strength outside of the elite fights as well. This goes very well with most of the single cost attacks, and it just makes the elite fights a little bit better as well. Okay, and then we're gonna go to campfire. And I like to try and upgrade Inflame early just because that extra strength helps out a bit. Okay, so now we have some sustain as well so that we can go more aggressive and worry a little bit less about block. Add some draw. And our deck is actually looking pretty strong now. So we're going through a pretty good Act 1. And we should be able to immediately make up for the loss of our starting relic. Combust is another one that would be much better if we had sustain. I don't want to put too much health loss into this deck just because we don't have a way to really gain it back too much, and we're already towards the end of this act. And we don't quite know what Act 2 is going to look like yet. One of the reasons why I don't upgrade Bash immediately is because elites could turn into Lagavulin, and one thing you can do with Bash is you can actually use it on Lagavulin and actually apply the vulnerability so that the next turn you can hit it much harder and wake it up. However, because of the Slay of Courage, that will never apply here, so it is almost always worth upgrading because every time we use Bash, it's gonna always wake up the Lagavulin, so might as well have it hit harder and have longer vulnerability. Okay, so here we have sentries. For this particular fight, I'm probably gonna be focused more on taking one out like that, so that I take less damage over the course of the battle. And one of the few times I'm going to use Offering. And when possible, if you think you're going to actually be taking out the sentry that's going to be attacking next, you want to set it up so that you don't have to take damage at the same time you're actually attacking, and you can actually switch gears to whatever remains as well. So overall, a very easy Act 1 in terms of elites, and we're able to take full advantage of the Black Star. Alright, don't like any of these cards, so we're going to skip them. Now we have some small AoE that's going to hit for 3 to all enemies every single turn, and now we have even more sustain, so now we actually start to like more of those self-damage cards quite a bit, because now we can make it back a lot better and still keep our momentum going. Right, so I like Impervious here. Whirlwind is an AoE, but we have AoE through the Mercury Hourglass plus the Cleave, and while Whirlwind is most of the time better than Cleave, we have enough covered that we don't need a second set of AoE right now. Having some extra block is good though, especially in that much amount. Right, so going to just make our attack a little bit more of an attack, especially when against Slime Boss, who will have some splits that we need to consider, and just make sure we can hit them just a little bit harder. Right. So here, I need to decide if I want to split right now by using the Carnage on here. They'll put it down to, just with this one alone, I'll bring it down to 64, and then with this one it'll go down to 49, so it's whether or not 49 is a good enough split. But if I actually pay attention to my pen nib, I can actually hit it for much harder. Bring it down to 84, down to 7, and this boss fight's already over. So we're already seeing a lot of the benefits of Ironclad being highlighted here, especially when you get a good set of relics. So this will carry us even further into the next act, and we are presented with double tap, which just lets you use any attack twice without any extra cost. We have Impervious, which we can always take a second one. And then we have Corruption, which is a power that will make all your skills cost 0, but when you use them, they'll be exhausted. So Corruption is particularly powerful if it's paired up with Dead Branch to replace any cards that get exhausted with new ones, or if you have a deck that can get through fights really fast and you got to focus more on just being able to defend as you get to your attacks faster. Our deck as a whole is already mostly attacks, and I think we can actually manage to take this one. Worst case scenario, it ends up being just a card that sits in our deck for a long time and we don't use except for under very specific conditions. Best case scenario, it carries us even harder. Alright, so now we have 3 options where we have the Runic Cube, which every time we lose HP, we'll draw a card. Well, this will give us the ability to draw a lot more. Again, another card that's more helpful with self-harm or certain curses that you get that will actually deal damage back to you. We have our Energy Relic, which is Fusion Hammer. Basically means we won't be able to upgrade for the rest of the run unless we run into some very specific events. And then we have the Call-in Bell, which will give us 3 random relics and a curse at the same time. I'm liking the Call-in Bell here just to get 3 relics. We have a decent set right here. I still want to be able to upgrade, and I think I can manage on just 3 mana throughout the Act 2. I'm going to take that. This is the curse we get. It's permanently stuck in our deck. We can't remove it. And then we get 3 relics that are actually quite good. So we have the Ancient Tea set to give us early energy. We have Gremlin Horn that every time we kill someone we'll get energy, plus a card, and then we get Calipers that works basically like Barricade, except you just lose 15 block instead of all your block. So knowing that we're going to be playing most of our defense and we have something like Impervious to play, we're going to retain a good chunk of that value there. So overall, a good bell. We're able to get energy, keep that taken care of, and we actually are able to counterbalance some of the drawbacks of Corruption. So Act 2, really going to go for the total 2 elites that we want. Going to try and get this shop and go for campfire, and then campfire. So enough to keep us quite healthy and still get the maximum benefit of the elites, and should be a pretty easy act. So there's not much point unless you can do a lot of different status ailments to the Sphere Guardian. It has 3 artifact charges. So if you use Bash on it, it's only going to cancel that out. So this is really just a 2 mana, 10 damage. So you might as well take something that does the same amount for less and gets you some more options. Right, so now we're going to be frail, but we should be able to get through this right about now. And the only damage we took was the one we dealt to ourselves. Great. So now that we have corruption, skills are a little bit more appealing. We have a second set of AoE that also applies vulnerability. The fact that it's 1 cost instead of the 2 cost of Bash is also very good because it pairs well with Carnage. And then you also have the AoE effects of adding strength, so you're dealing 3 extra damage to each enemy. And decent pick right here. Flame Barrier, when we're looking at who we're fighting, we need to be a little bit careful about it because this is a high cost skill, and if we have corruption we're going to lose it because of how the Bronze Automaton works. It will be very quickly, it will basically lead to where we're just run out of block too early and just taking a lot of damage up front. And that leads to Ghostly Armor, which is a card that really just gives a lot of block, and then if you don't use it, it will just exhaust. So really, it's the block version of Carnage, and it's at least one I'm going to take for now, just to give me enough block now that I know who my Act 2 boss is. Alright, so this is a fight that goes pretty quick, so corruption is something good to use here. We have the 3 different bandits, one that will drop your dexterity, one that just hits hard and does status ailments, and then one that hits twice each turn. So now we get the red mask, where at the beginning of each turn, very first turn, all enemies will have 1 week applied to them. Alright, so now we have an option of Body Slam is not particularly useful right now. It's only really good if you're going to have a massive amount of block, and it's just not the type of deck we're building right now, where that's going to become a really good option. Perfected Strike, while we still have all of our strikes in the starting deck, it's not one I want right now. And Metallicize is one that gives us a little bit of extra block each turn. It pairs well with Orichalcum because then at the end of each turn we'll get 9 block instead of 6. Or if we have block ourselves, we can just add it on. Right. So first thing I see in this shop, and it's kind of the key thing to think about first, is the membership card, where this shop and all future shops will be at 50% discount. So I need to look at this one and then compare it to the rest to see if I can buy this and others, or if it's worth considering that I'll be able to get future shops down the line and want to also have the discount for those as well. I think we don't need the sustain through the pantograph. I think we can do without the attack with Horncleat. So overall, from the relic perspective, this one's pretty good because it'll give us more options further down the line, especially as we go into Act 3. So now that everything costs significantly less, we can look at card removals, we can look at additional powers. Not much else speaks to me in this shop, and I'm just going to do card removal and move on. So this event, you can obtain a relic, and you may or may not get a curse as a result of this. And this one is a curse that will always be in your starting hand, so you'll always have one less card that you're drawing on your opening hand. At least when it's 50%, it's worth considering. When it's 100%, I always say no to it. Since we're doing pretty well on relics, and I think we can manage it, I took it. And now we have a Thraska, where we can now get even more relics from chests. And we're about to go in to chest here, and we're going to have at least one in Act 3, so maximum value from there as well. Alright, so the memory game. So far, not seeing cards I'm interested in, so just really have skipped the floor. So here, thinking between corruption, metallicize, impervious also would be good to get that extra little bit of block up. For corruption, lower the cost so that's more accessible, and metallicize for a little bit of extra block. I think we're gonna be just fine right now and can spend it on metallicize. Book of Stabbing. Another relatively quick turn. You'll see that I played the Ghostly Armor first before I played the Corruption. While it comes at the cost of 1 mana, it's still something that I can cycle through and play again. So I don't want to draw right now because I want to take full advantage of my deck as it comes up. And focus more on playing it this turn. So no point in drawing into cards that I'm not going to be able to play. Okay, so since I only have 1 defend, I might as well not play it because I'll actually gain 6 by not playing it. And that will put my total block at 10 instead of 5 plus 4, so 9. So just for options, draw. Now it actually might be better to play both of them. So now we can just play all of these so that we will take damage. We'll still have, not take damage, we'll fully block. I'll still having some leftover block for next turn as well. And that's Book of Stabbing. So as long as you go through the fight fast enough, you can do just fine with using Corruption. Disarm, very powerful card, especially with multi-attack enemies. Very good against if you get it early enough against Hexaghost. It allows you to actually reduce the heart when you actually fight them, as well as Time Eater and a few of the other bosses. So it is a significant reduction in damage if you can apply it right. Okay, so Thieves, another quick fight. I think we can get away with Corruption. Not sure if we're gonna do enough with it though. Alright, so now that we're going to be exhausting cards, Dark Embrace, especially an upgraded one, becomes more appealing. As we're going to get skills out of our hands, Clash could also be good as long as we don't draw into a curse, because you can only play it if you have only attack cards in your hand. A second offering, I think we can do without it right now. We go through our deck way too fast for there to be a real need for a second one. I like Dark Embrace here just for the exhaust synergy. Keep on going. Okay, so now we have Bag of Marbles, where we apply vulnerability on the first turn. So on the first turn, we're going to have them to be weak. They're going to be vulnerable, and if we can set it up right, we can deal double damage. Overall, good set of relics that makes our first turn very good. Then we have Red Skull, where we'll have 3 additional strength if our health is below 50%. And so we're not quite there yet, but it makes it so that at least if we get there, we'll be able to hit much harder. Okay, I'm going to skip this shop because I want to much rather try and go see what this question mark is. I want to make use of these campfires. Okay, now that we have additional synergies, if I have to play both powers at the same time, I'm going to actually keep the cost there. And now we have Snicker. So the good news is corruption will override the confusion. So if I play it here, they always will still become 0 cost. Now I get to go through most of my deck, get all my armor, and maybe even have my attacks be costing less. And for a very easy fight. Okay, so another skill that also exhausts cards. Now we have an event where you can take a relic that will upgrade 1 card per turn as you draw them. If you have any unupgraded cards, when you draw them, one of them will be selected and upgraded at random, and it comes at the cost of pain. So the one consideration here is, can I get through these 2 fights with pain in my deck, which will deal 1 damage to me, bypassing block every time I play a card while it's in my hand. So again, I have to get through the fights quickly, but now I have the added effect where I'm going to be losing HP each time I play a card while this is in my hand. And with corruption, it's going to be in my hand more frequently. So high priority to get that out of my deck as soon as possible. So with Wrong Automaton, I'm going to want Impervious to be upgraded instead of Disarm. Gives a little bit extra block. Doing that to get my block to be a little bit higher, so that really I don't need to worry too much about blocking this turn. So we're seeing one of the good things that happened where we get True Grit and Pain in the same turn. That way I can play it and get this out of my deck, for at least for this fight, and just keep on going without having to worry about taking too much extra damage. So another pretty easy fight. And now we're starting to get another energy relic to keep us going, where we might even be able to get away with not having to take any energy relics at the end of this act. And now we're seeing Kunai, so when we play 3 attacks, we'll get extra dexterity. Very good to have, especially since we're going to be attacking a lot. It also helps make our block just that much better. And I'm liking some more skills. Keep those going, make so we can at least block sufficiently when we need to. I'm also going to upgrade Shrug It Off because we get to keep that in our hand a little bit longer. Makes better use than Ghostly Armor would. So trying to get the dexterity running right away and try and just... Oh, that could have been really bad. But luckily, we were able to get through this fight just fine. Right, so now we're almost fully blocked. Right, so I think I can take 1 damage just fine. Little shame that we lost the Carnage there, but we can manage just fine with it. Right, so this one took Corruption, and that's not too bad because I'm not going to be using it right away. And we're just going to focus more on blocking right now, get rid of the artifact charge. And now start trying to prepare for the bigger hits. Probably not going to be playing Corruption in this fight, except for maybe towards the very end. That's mostly because I don't want to run out of block when I have something like this coming. So while I can't fully block it, I can at least get pretty close to where the fight can continue just fine. And now that that's out of the way, since it's going to be another 6 turns before another Hyper Beam, I think I can get through the rest of the fight just fine without it. So I won't block unless I have to, but I at least will make it so that they cost a lot less and I have some draw. Alright, so I can decide if I want to take the damage or if I want to use one of my potions. Since I heal up to full at the end of each act, there's no real point in wasting the potions, and I can just take it down next turn as long as I'm not dying. Right, so cards here, double tap, don't really want. We already have a Corruption and they don't stack. And then we have a good damage card that if we kill an enemy with it, we actually increase our health. So like this one a lot, I take it whenever I can get it. And now we have 3 choices where we have the Astrolabe, which will just replace 3 cards with upgraded cards at random. We have Busted Crown for energy, and we have Snecko Eye. And looking through our deck, we could benefit from having Sneko Eye, especially when we consider that Corruption will override all the skills to still be 0. And I think I'm going to take it. Alright, so boss is going to be Mr. Power Reducer. And we have almost no elites. So it's a question if we want to go 2 elites, but have a very narrow path with no options, or if we want to go 1 elite with a good amount of options. I like this path because of the shops and campfires. The only real benefit here is 2 elites with no shops. So I'm going to go this way. I'm going to start in here and just adjust as I need to. So I'm being a little bit cautious about drawing into pain. If I'm gonna draw, I want to draw it towards the end of the turn. Kinda like that. Alright, so this will be the first time we actually can see a regenerate for the Darklands, and you can see just they go to about half health, and really just need to make sure you take them out. We also get our first hit with pain, and also our first feed off to increase our health. And don't need another speed potion. Don't need another Dark Embrace. The other 2 cards are just not worth it. So hitting the spikers a little bit harder if you don't have a lot of blocks, so you have to either take damage or you need to put up enough block that you can actually strike. If you have some passive way to get to it, like we do with Letter Opener, that works quite a bit better. It allows you to attack it without having to worry too much. Or you can just make sure you have enough attack and enough block to take it down quicker. Tile size, it's a little bit less healing now that we have to go and fight our birdie friend there, and because Sneko Eye will make it actually cost more. But on the other hand, we have some extra block. I think we can get away with having 2 in our deck. Yeah, I'm going to stick with having 2. So last fight before a shop. This way we can get pain out of our deck permanently. Now I'm going to go here, that way I can get both the Spectre out of the way immediately, get our feed off, get us some energy, and just continue on pretty easily. So just a very good draw up front. Damage. So this fight's nearly over, so I'm just gonna power through it a little bit. Right, so body slam would be a little bit more appealing if it wasn't for Snekowai. Generally not worth the cost unless you cost 0, but we do have a lot of draw that would at least have made it worth considering. We don't need another Carnage, and we have enough Pommel Strikes. So I can go to shop, get the Pain out of our deck. Now we have a very good power, but since we're going to be doing a lot of exhaust, every time we exhaust a card, we'll gain 3 block. And we have another disarm as well. And having more potions helps quite a bit, especially when you have the ability to actually collect them. It gives you more option in fights, gives you the ability to keep things going. So as you run into more situational things, having more potions generally is a good thing. And I'm going to take Shockwave as well. So just getting a lot of block up, so I have to worry a little bit less about that next turn. And fight's nearly over again, so I'm gonna focus more on getting my attacks out. See if I can get this down enough to trigger the feed. I do. Feed will only trigger for Darklands if you get it on the last one. If you take down any of the other two and it's not the one that ends the fight, it will not trigger. Seeing red is good only when corruption is on. I don't think we need the energy. Right, so we're going to increase our block again. Burn each exhaust, make it a little bit better. See if we can get anything in this shop. And it looks like we have a choice between Iron Wave and some potions. Let's see if we have any that are better than our current potions. I don't think any of these are worth considering. And I don't think we need or want Iron Wave. Skipped over Headbutts. Don't need or want that either. Since I can't do a whole lot in this particular turn, spending it just trying to set myself up so I can bounce back from it a little bit better. So I think we're all set up now. I think we can actually get away with playing Corruption now and be just fine. Now I'm just gonna probably play pretty much all my skills now, get them out of the way. Now all we have at this point is attack, and we have enough block to hopefully last us the rest of the fight. And looks like we'll be just fine here. Okay, so gonna try and just outlast some of these attacks until we can get to feed, which we got to it right away, just fine. Here's a good card, and where we can increase our strength. Would have been much better early on, but still a good one to have, because every time they're attacking you, you can use this to increase strength. There's an egg. Probably not going to be picking up much more powers, if any at all, between now and the boss, and War Paint just to increase or improve our skills a little bit. Okay, so Spire Growth. This is an enemy that will inflict a debuff that at the end of each turn it will do passive damage to you, and you gotta try and count for its attacks plus the extra damage it does. So not much we can do about that right now. So it's going to be 10 damage plus 22, so need to try and plan for 32 damage. Looks like we can't really do anything about that right now. And I'm actually going to use my Gamma's Brew to get a better hand. So using this to get my block up as good as possible. Now we're blocking for what is now the 12 plus the 10, so the 22, while also setting up so that we can just get through this fight pretty quickly. And a lot of poor energy RNG, but alright, so now just looking for our feed. Don't want to use anything else between now and then because we want to have it trigger as long as we aren't taking any unreasonable amount of damage, because we might as well have the extra health. With Snecko Eye, we can take Bludgeon because it's just a lot of damage for pretty much the same cost as anything else would cost. And I want to go Campfire, so I'm going to go this way. By having the red mask, we can get extra gold. And so unless this is a shop, it doesn't really matter except for a little bit of extra score. And I'm going to make this hit a little bit harder. Okay, so our last elite fight. Giant head, and this one's going to be a little bit more interesting since we don't have a lot of small hits to rack up the slow as quickly. But the good news is we do have cards that hit pretty hard on their own. So already on turn 1, we brought it down by 170 damage. Not going to play Corruption just yet. I think at half health I can get away with it from this point onward. And generally when you're attacking Giant Head, you want to go with the smallest attacks up to the large attacks, because we want the larger attacks to benefit more from that extra percentage through the slow. I think I can make it through 1 or 2 more cycles of my deck just fine. And there we go. Alright, so once you pass 25 relics, you actually have to scroll through here. It has its own achievement associated with it. We got Bag of Prep, so now we're going to draw extra cards at the beginning of each combat, and Meal Ticket, that's not going to do anything unless this is a shop. It's not. Alright, so Madness will do absolutely nothing because it'll just be overwritten by Snekowai. Don't want to curse in our deck, and so we're just going to take a little bit less max health. Okay, so last upgrade. I'm going to put it on Disarm because of what we're facing here, and we want to bring that strength down. And just try and counteract what's going to happen with the use of our powers. Okay, so just going to start off immediately by taking out Cultist, make it so it's much easier to fight the rest of the fight. It's much easier to do 1-on-1 than 3-on-1. So spending just part of this just setting up, making sure ready to go. And taking just a little bit of front end damage, which is alright. It's not too bad. We have so much health that we can deal with it. Now we're pretty much set up, so now we can focus more on just taking it down. And once we go into the second phase, that's where I'll probably play Corruption if we need to, or even want to. but at this point, I don't think it will be necessary. I think we make through this fight just on our relics alone. And I might as well. I think I'm gonna make it through this act just fine. So, probably don't need to do it this way, but I'd much rather have a lot more attacks in my deck than anything else. And this way, I'm ready to go. So in just one turn, we dropped it down by 226, and that's it. So we've now completed Ironclad for the first time, and that gives us all 3 keys, which means from now on we can start going for the keys throughout the run and taking on the heart. We also get to start the fight with Ascensions on each character, which gives us access to start going through the challenge and fun that really comes with Slay the Spire. Right, so unlocked a few additional relics. Shovel, particularly Mimi, where you can actually just dig up relics. You have Prayer Wheel that gives extra card rewards, and Omamori to cancel out curses. And as we go through the credits, we now see that we have all 3 keys, which means from now on, we get to go fight the heart. So that'll do about this. Speaking is hard. That'll about wrap it up here. Like this content, be sure to subscribe. See you guys next time.